We are live. Oh, where's your camera? Why is it always your camera? See, this is why we do this. Oh, are you still there? There you are.
Hey!
Shape.
Yes.
We're gonna do square. Why is it rounding your corners? Don't round Bryson's corners.
I don't mind it.
No. Bad corner rounding. Bad corner. There we go. Okay, hey everybody. How's it going? We're gonna get started here in just a second.
Hey.
Ryan and I were fixing some technical difficulties real quick. That's okay.
Yes.
We're good. The demo gods are not always good to us, but that's okay. We're just making sure that all our...
well, I feel like we've been like hitting pay dirt for the last couple of days here.
It's true.
Like, I mean, for anyone who's listening, Jeff and I just got done, you can't see it off screen here, but I have a giant poster that's right here. We just got done producing an event where, like, you know, we had thousands and thousands of people at. So,
yes.
It was, you know, if things are, you know, we're having difficulties right now, I think it's fine.
Yeah, that's true. All right, just check.
I'll take difficulties now.
Seriously, I'm just checking all the streams. Cool. We are live on the Facebooks. I think we're live on YouTube. I'm gonna double check Twitter. Right, Rich, unfortunately, will not be able to make it tonight.
Oh, that's too bad. I have a special thing for the next time Rich is here.
He's got some health stuff going on, so we're just gonna give him some best wishes. Oh, Rich, you are here.
Oh,
dude,
right on.
You didn't have to come, Rich. I mean, I appreciate it, dude, but you need to be resting, buddy. Let's see here. Where is it pushing to Twitter? Is it not pushing to Twitter? Better be pushing to Twitter. What the heck? Technology. I know we're not super exciting at the moment. I apologize, everybody. Give me just a second.
No worries. We're you know, this is the preview show.
The preview show. Exactly. Yeah, thanks, Rich. I appreciate it, man. It was a fun.
Thank you so much.
They were fun events, buddy. They were.
And they were also. I hope Rich was able to catch DevNet Create, and at a time where it was convenient to him. That was actually the beauty of DevNet Create. That's a little harder for our show. We're able to. So everybody to know. I don't know why we've never really talked about it. But Jeff and I work at Cisco. And and we work for DevNet, which is the developer wing of Cisco, and it's like an amazing, cool position. It's a fun thing that we get to do, which is talk to developers. And we had a lot of fun just recently hosting DevNet Create. Jeff was actually one of our main hosts, and he's got that great setup, and but also great personality, and was able to host across 3 time zones. In the Americas, in EMEA, Europe, North Africa, and then also APJC, Asia Pacific. So it was a lot of fun. But I will say, Jeff and I are at like, I want to say, you know, we might be running on empty right now. It's been a heck of a couple of days here.
Yes, it has been. I'm excited for our show, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm also going out of town this weekend by myself to go see some friends in Reno.
Hey.
So I'm like very much looking forward to just having some downtime and like sleeping in by myself in a hotel room for 2 days in a row. I don't know what I'm going to do other than just like sleep.
That's awesome. I know this is going to sound really funny, but we can make this the Reno chat for like a second or two if you're interested.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So,
I lived there for like 11 years. So yeah.
Oh, okay, so you'll like this. So, Reno, up until very recently, had a minor league soccer team. It was the Reno Football Club, but I want to say it's like battle. Their cry was Battleborn, and
the cry for by the way, the cry for everything in Reno, specifically Reno, but kind of Nevada, is Battleborn. It's actually mostly northern Nevada is Battleborn.
Well, so I live in Sacramento. and we had up until very recently, it's now a major league soccer, but we're now in the MLS. But up until recently, we were in the ULS. We're the Sacramento Republic Football Club, SRFC. I have worn SRFC shirts here on the Kessel chat, and our rivals often were Reno, and we have this there is this thing that a buddy of mine is a really big part of, which is the Tower Bridge Brigade. There's true fans. They bring tifos. They just go crazy at every single Republic event. It's amazing. There's a guy that dresses up like a bear. It's nuts. And when I mean he dresses up like a bear, I mean like the guy's like got a legit, he's the rave bear. He's got like lights and everything. So it's really, really cool, man. And so anyway, I was a part of the Travel Bridge Brigade, and we would always go to Reno and almost always get into fights in Reno. And
sounds about right.
I don't know what. Oh, I'm telling you, it was legit. We would go to the game. It always seemed to get out of control. But it was, I think it was all in good fun. And then we would spend the evening with the players sometimes gambling. And I never left Reno without, that trip paid for. Reno is like it's like my lucky spot, man. I don't know how many people can say that about Reno, but for me, it was 100% like a place where I always walked away a winner.
That's too funny. Yeah, we used to, so when I lived there, it was right when they decided to bring in the Aces, the Reno Aces, which is the minor league baseball team. And they built the whole stadium for them, with like a whole outdoor area that was like, you could go pregame and party, and there's all kinds of stuff you could do without actually going into the stadium. Yep. It was a blast. Like, that was the thing. I'm not a huge sports fan in general, but like baseball, I will do, because I don't really have to worry about it too much. I can kind of be there and just hang out, and you don't have to be super into it, and it doesn't really matter. And we still love going to that. That was like one of our favorite things to do. Me and my friends' favorite things to do, because it was inexpensive. Like, you could do the lawn seats for like $10 a person.
Oh yeah.
And just go sit in the lawn seats in the back. Or I think even once we got like on the just off of third base, like 3 rows off of third base for like $25 a person or something. Like, we were at a special one night, and it was like super inexpensive. I'm like, this is fantastic. Like, this is exactly what I want to do. But yeah, I moved there when I was, I think, 22, and I moved back to California in 2012. So,
right on.
Yeah, 10, 11 years, give or take, is how long I was there. And I lived in Carson City, the south end of Carson City, for probably the first 2 or 3 years of that before I moved to Reno. And then the rest of the time in Reno. But yeah, it was going to be exciting. I'm going there to see some friends, driving up there tomorrow for the weekend. I'm probably going to get there early so that I can like either get my room early, hopefully, or just go park at a coffee shop and just like, hey, by myself, headphones on, and just work for a few hours. I have a bunch of stuff to knock out. But then, yeah, at the evening, get together with some friends. There's a bunch of new breweries. Midtown has been built up completely.
There are.
Dude, since the last, 5, 6, 7 years ago, somewhere in there, that range, they built up Midtown, which is basically it's a stretch of South Virginia from the Truckee River down to almost the Pepper Mill. Not all of it has been rebuilt, but a huge chunk of it has been rebuilt with all kinds of amazing restaurants and bars and breweries and shopping. And it's like a place you actually want to wander. When I lived there, it wasn't a bad neighborhood, but it was not a place that you there was nothing to do. Like, you wouldn't, with some liquor stores and some other types of stuff that you wouldn't just like go walking down the street for. And now it's like actually like has a nightlife that is not attached to the downtown casinos and things like that. So that's pretty cool. I actually really enjoy that. So it's gonna be fun. All right.
No, I gotta say, like, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the city. Again, I think it goes a long way that I've never lost gambling there. Now I'm gonna jinx it. But I will say that I'm it's a fun little town to be in. I have so many fun, crazy, insane stories of going to Reno with the traveling Tower Bridge Brigade, and having some guy try to steal my chips off the table, and Cal Neva Yeah, Calneva, and then having the pit bosses chase the guy down and then throw him out and say that guy's done that at 5 other places here in Reno tonight, and it's like, wow, this is crazy town. Some of the best French toast at 3 a.m. is available at Reno.
Oh, I have a food place for you for Reno, but let's get started. We'll get the show going, and then I got a food place for you. All right, everybody, let's
jump in.
Oh, still doesn't like me and your I don't know what it is, man. Camera overlay, let's fix you. There you are.
There I am.
Oh, you're looking super crisp.
And there's Devi. That's who we were just talking about.
Yeah,
like a little while ago.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so that was the event.
My co-host on the main channel. There's my Devi.
Hey, that's awesome.
Oh
wow, that's really cool.
She made a mask. She crafted a mask for her Devi. So
that's awesome.
Actually had a mask on her Devi. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I might have told you this story, but so we all have these Devis, and Devi is like this little guy that Jeff was just showing, and I got one too, and I have very few things in my office that are like, kind of like, oh, my kids are like, oh, can I have that? Outside of like my chessboard that's back here. And my kids came right up to me and they were like, oh, hey, could you show us show us the Devi, show us Devi. So I get my little guy out, the little Devi here. And my youngest daughter says, can I take Devi and go around? And I was like, yeah, just make sure he comes back and he's clean. I don't want anything bad to happen to Devi. And my daughter leaves for exactly 5 minutes and comes back, and he's got like blue marks all over him. And I'm like, how did this happen? And she's like, I'm 8. That's what happens. So yeah, like I can never like loan my stuff out. Debbie came back, and at least it's blue. At least it kind of matches.
Yeah,
so,
true.
Yeah,
that's true. Hey, Rob Thomas, how you doing, man? Thanks for being here. And Shannon just said, "Now I'm hungry." I was like, "Now I'm hungry." French toast does sound amazing, babe. I promise that I won't go get French toast without you. I might go get it in Awful. So that is the spot. So if you're from Reno or Reno, I'm trying to remember. I think it's at the Nugget.
Right on.
Let me double check here. Burger, Reno. Is it just? Let me take a look. Yeah, it's at the Little Nugget in downtown Reno. So they're open basically all night. I think it's 24/7.
Right on.
This is the place you would go to get, like, you've been out all night, you've been drinking. Yep. This is where you go. This is where all the locals go. It's buried. This little restaurant buried in the back of the little Nugget. You go in there. It's called Awful. Like the words awful burger, and they serve.
I love it.
They make like chicken strips and all this stuff. No, you go there and you get. I'll just have an awful, and it's just the burger and fries, and it's like this pile of like these amazing fries for 3:00 in the morning with this big burger that is like the simplest thing in the world. I'm looking at the pictures right now. Patty, basics, iceberg lettuce, purple onion, just like the simplest things. But my God, it is like the best thing in the world when you've been out all night long and you're like, this is all I want. I don't even need all the other stuff I would normally go to, like Jack in the Box tacos or no. Get an awful, go home and go to bed. Everything's fine.
Oh, I love it. I will say that like my that sounds amazing. That's exactly what that I feel like anyone wants to eat. Anytime I'm out like through the evening and like especially if you're going out to like one of these events where we were, which was a soccer game, it ends late and it's at the baseball stadium. Jeff, exactly, like they just cordon a portion of it off and that's where they play soccer. And
okay, I didn't know that.
I don't know what it is, but man, like. My first thought always is I gotta get some French toast.
It's a good thought. Let's just be honest.
Oh yeah, like let's where can we go and get some really good French toast? I had my first like I think I'm in a simulation or I have escaped the Matrix moment in Reno. I wonder how many people have had that in Reno. where it's like, you just hit a moment. For me, it was a good moment, but I'm sure that for others, it might be that like, oh man, like I'm, 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 I am hitting something here in Reno. I had gone out with the TBB, and we were gambling, and we were playing craps, and we were just like on a winning streak. I mean, so much that I was like, I gotta leave this table because oh my gosh, this is getting crazy. And we just kept winning and winning and winning. And at one point it was like the trip was paid for. And then the French toast was paid for. And then it kept going and going and going. And finally I make my break from the table, and I'm like, I'm gonna leave now before the table gets cold. Thank you so much. And I walk out, and I'm with a friend of mine, and he and I walk out of the hotel, and the sun was up, and we were like, wait a second, how did this happen? And it's of course that like casino mentality of there's no clocks or windows, you have absolutely no idea like what time has passed. It was the lost vortex of time. It is still to this day like one of the weirdest feelings of like walking out and being like, whoa, it is morning. And we had been just playing and playing and playing and doing well. And definitely from my younger days. But it was a really just like crazy moment to be like, wait a second, how did that happen? So yeah.
Yeah,
good times.
I don't gamble, so I've never spent enough time in a casino to like have that be a real problem for me. But I have experienced it to some degree. So yeah, no, I totally get it. My camera is set in a weird position. Sorry, I just realized that like it's looking at my shed door. Let me see if we can turn this thing with my feet.
Oh, right on.
That's
look at that.
Okay,
that is
better.
master. Fixes there.
Yeah. All right. Well, enough Reno talk for tonight. I will have plenty of more stories, I'm sure, later on. We've got that. But before we get started,
yes,
because I haven't done this in a while, and we should. Let's throw this up there real quick.
Oh, subscribe.
Yeah, did it? Oh, my button didn't work. The button, it didn't work. That's okay. Subscribe, please. If you like the video, you like what you're watching, please hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have it. And a thumbs up. If you like watching the content, a little thumbs up helps the algorithm in YouTube and all the other places. We're on Facebook, also streaming live tonight, which is kind of cool. We should have been on Twitter, but I think something went a little wonky with Restream. So just Facebook and YouTube tonight, but that's okay. We'll get this down. It'll be all right. And for everyone watching afterwards, we appreciate it. We're moving to 8. We're going to juggle between 8 and 8:30 and figure out what's a good time for us. But I think this is going to work out better for our personal lives, which is exactly what we need it to be, which is good. And so now that that's settled, Ryan, this one was your topic. Like this one was so last week we talked about the editing process. How films are like made or broken in the editing process in so many cases. So I think I really feel like when you messaged me earlier, like, here's a couple ideas for tonight. Seeing this one, I was like, we have to do this because it feels like just a natural extension of what we started with last week. Because as much as the film is made or broken within the editing process, something has to be created to be given to the editor to do something with. That's kind of arguments aside about the contribution levels of producers and all the other people involved, but a director's the one directing those cameras and picking shots and trying to translate that story into how it's shot on film or digital media for somebody else to then take and manipulate and turn it into something. So I think this is going to be really fascinating, but I'm going to hand it to you because this is your baby for tonight.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this topic because we have been talking a lot about like I would say the art of movie making. And we did talk about how movies are either made or broken in editing. Sometimes movies are saved in the editing. Star Wars is one of those movies, saved in the editing. Fellowship of the Ring, saved in the editing. But this is a little bit different. This is like from the storyteller perspective. And that's not to discount the writers that are often writing these stories, but it's directors that really kind of help to pull together a unified vision. They say that the stage is the actor's medium, and that television is the writer's medium, and movies are the director's medium. That is like where a director can kind of pull together all of the cool things from music to casting to costumes to everything. It's a director's unique vision. And you think about really great directors like Martin Scorsese, who has such a unique style that is immediately translated on screen, or someone like Wes Anderson. I don't think anyone could watch any Wes Anderson movie and not know that it's a Wes Anderson movie. He's got such a unique style. He's got specific things that he's trying to do, or even someone like James Gunn.
Or Michael Bay.
I can watch
Michael Bay's another great example.
Yeah, Michael Bay.
I'm not passing judgment, good, bad, or indifferent, but you watch a Michael Bay film and like it's a Michael Bay film.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, directors really own what I would say, not just the story, but and the decisions. Like a director's given is answering questions like all day long. Like, what about this haircut? What about this style? What about this costume? Everything. Directors are the ones that are cultivating a holistic view of what is going to be presented on screen in 120 minutes. And that's why I think it's great that we can sit down and kind of talk about directors that we love and like, that we think would be a really great addition to the Star Wars universe. And it all kind of fell on a story that came out, I think it was a couple days ago, about how Chloe Zhao, who is the Academy Award winning director of Nomadland, the director of The Eternals, that she said, I would be really interested in doing a Star Wars movie. And she has such a amazing if you've seen like Nomadland, like it's such a well put together movie. I would love to see people of the like of Chloe Zhao, and I know that we have each made lists of storytellers, of people that we think could contribute a great deal to the Star Wars universe. And so that's kind of today's topic. And Jeff, I'd be interested to see who is on your list. I have made my own. I've got 9 names here. And even a wish list of if we could go back in time.
I've got 3. I think they've all are in the circle of Star Wars anyway, but they've never done a movie. Nice. But they're adjacent to or have been part of Star Wars in some way, shape, or form. I was digging through some others trying to figure out who, but I realized I don't spend enough time looking at the director of things. So that's a bit of homework for me, is to spend more time paying attention to editors and directors and things. But there are 3 on my list that I want to bring up, and I think for all of them I am like beyond excited to see what else they could do with these stories. So the first person on the list is like one of the few directors that I will follow anything this person does. Like, and you pick a movie, I don't care. I'm going to go watch it. I'll find a way to watch it. And that's Taika Waititi. I love everything that Taika does. To me is just, I love his balance is probably the wrong word. The rhythm that he creates between serious tones that are necessary to make generally serious films that aren't just slapstick comedy. So you can make comedic films, but there's a place where it goes too far where you're like full comedy, it's almost slapsticky, and I like what Taika does because there's enough of a level of being serious and the way that he translates his story into the scenes that are caught on film, so to speak. Right. But he brings in an amount of levity to everything that is in there, that even things that are serious, they can feel serious while also interweaving jokes or things.
Jojo Rabbit.
That take the situation less serious, but you still feel the weight of the situation. So, for example, when he did Thor Ragnarok in the MCU, and the scene where Loki and Thor have just watched their dad watch Odin disappear, and seconds later Hela shows up, and they're talking and they're bantering a little bit, and it's like a dark comedy sort of moment, and then Thor throws his hammer and she shatters his hammer, shatters Mjolnir, and then all the seriousness happens that play out from there. But in the moments, they're still laughing. Like, they're still making kind of sarcastic sort of jokes with each other. But it doesn't take away, the way that he brings that in doesn't take away from the intensity that is necessary in that situation, so that you feel like, oh my gosh, something is really about to happen here. And I love that. I really appreciate how he's able to bring in comedy, or I shouldn't even say comedy, but levity into situations while also keeping them heavy at the same time. He does better than so many directors I've ever watched. He does that so well.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I feel like Taika Waititi is one of these directors where, like you, like I'm a Taika Waititi completist. Guy makes a movie, I'm going to go see it.
Yeah.
And I also think he's got such a unique style and a unique vision, and he's got a set of actors that he likes to work with. And it was funny, he was talking about Jojo Rabbit, which when I heard the premise for Jojo Rabbit, and at the time, it was hard to swallow. It was like, oh man, like you're walking on the edge of the knife here, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is gonna be really rough if you don't get it just right. He had the tone and the vision for that down so well. Jojo Rabbit is like a movie that like still sticks with me. And there are the casting of that movie is like unbelievable. You put Sam Rockwell in anything and the guy's like
True.
amazing. Seriously, if you watch a bad movie and then you think, I wonder if Sam Rockwell was in this movie, would the movie be better?
Him and Gary Oldman.
It all the time.
Him and Gary Oldman.
Oh, Gary, yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I could not agree more, especially on Gary Oldman. The thing that I would say about that is he has such a great way of working with his actors. Even like, he was talking about the casting of the young actors, and he said, and this is what makes a great director. He said, I wasn't looking for a child that could act. I was looking for a child that was very much like the character that they were going to play, and then I would help them get there. And he does such a great job in, having this almost near idiosyncratic way of like what he's trying to get out of his movies. Mm-hmm. And I think he'd be a great addition to the Star Wars universe.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. So the other two that I had on the list are Bryce Dallas Howard and Patty Jenkins. So Patty,
right on.
So Patty Jenkins hasn't done anything in Star Wars yet, but she is going to be. So she did Wonder Woman.
Yep.
Sure, I haven't looked at the other one. Sure, other stuff. And Wonder Woman, especially the first one, was just one of the best films I have ever seen. Like that thing is just, it is just, the first Wonder Woman just is like, this is just near perfect. As far as films go, to me, that is a near perfect film. And she's going to be filming Rogue Squadron in the next year, I think 1 to 2 years, for Star Wars. So she's on the docket to do something for Star Wars. But her work, just the way that I don't even know how to explain it, but when she did Wonder Woman as an example, that's a movie where I don't know how quite to describe the technicalities of how she does what she does. But in watching that movie, it was the first time I have watched a DC movie and gone, oh, so DC could be pretty awesome. And no offense to DC Comics. I don't mean DC Comics and the stories. I mean the DCU, the DC films that have come out to date. It was the first time I watched one and go, oh, okay. So the DCU could actually be pretty badass. All right, I'll give it a shot again. Because watching that movie, it felt like somebody who took a comic book character and did them right. Just like, I won't say not like every single MCU film, because not every MCU film, landed this as well. But most of them, because they had a unified direction, unified stories, and the right directors were picked to do the right types of storytelling. That's what she did for this. She did Wonder Woman right in the story based off of how Wonder Woman is. Because you would think, Amazonian goddess fights a Roman or a Greek god or Roman god, and like that seems very like, how do you make that movie that seems even believable? And then you watch it and it feels like, wow, this is intense, and it's no different than having the god of thunder from Asgard show up on planet Earth. Like it's not any. If anything, it's actually better because she's not meant to be comedic. She's not meant to be silly. She's meant to be intense and a protector and stoic, and she is. And she did that character so well in that movie. For me, somebody like Taika wouldn't be the right person to direct a movie like that, because that's not the character type. That's not what you need for that movie. There's enough of the levity in there to make it enjoyable to watch and not overly serious, but I'm excited to see her do Rogue Squadron. I'm really curious to see what the story is going to be in that movie, or that TV series, I think. And then Bryce Dallas Howard, she did two episodes of The Mandalorian, Sanctuary and The Heiress, and I loved it. And actually, when you watch the behind the scenes stuff in The Mandalorian, when they talk about her as a director, everyone was like, everybody loved working with all of their directors, but you hear them talk about Bryce and the level of affection they talk about with her, how she shows up and they just feel like she's just another person they're talking to. She's super comfortable to be around. She's very human, but she has a large set of emotion that goes into why she's picking the scenes the way she does and the way she approaches them, that makes all of the actors just want to do well for her. They just like, no, but I want to make this really good for Bryce. And they even said that, like, I felt the way that she approached it made me feel like, no, but I want to make her really proud of this. So I'm going to go do it really well so that she feels really good about this. And it's a sign of a good leader in general. Like, those are signs of really good leaders. But to me, her specifically, with the other work that she's done too, really gets me excited about. I want to see her do like a full feature, like not to diminish the work on something like The Mandalorian. That's one of the best TV shows I've ever watched. I mean, it is just phenomenal. I'd love to see what she could do given an entire feature length movie. What could she do at that point that we saw her start with in The Mandalorian? I know she's done other feature length films, of course, but I really would love to see her actually be given almost like given Ahsoka, like, hey, make Ahsoka come to life. Like, she's getting her own series, but make her Ahsoka come to life on the big screen or something to that effect. I would love to see that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I really liked Bryce Dallas. Action is a really hard thing to capture well. And you see that in a lot of movies done poorly, where it's like, I can't position myself. Oh, I see that comment on screen. I have James Wan on my list, by the way.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, James Wan is the director of Aquaman. He's a great world builder. Aquaman is like a surreal experience. I was like, oh snap, like, I can't believe I'm like this. If you would have told me I was going to like Aquaman, I would have said, yeah, I don't think so. I'm not joking around. James Wan, who, he's great. He also has a current movie that's available on Netflix, which is a crazy movie called Malignant. And he's got a really unique visual style. I think he's great. But I completely agree with you on Bryce Dallas Howard. The episode of The Mandalorian that she, all of the work that she's done, but the episode in particular of kind of the raid on the village by the ATSTs, that was great, and it was scary. It's done so well that I've got young children, and we have to skip past that part because it's
intense.
Scary.
It is intense. Yeah.
It's
they
well
did
captured.
a good job
it's
with
well
that.
done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I really like that. And I agree too, with Patty Jenkins. It's so funny. I sat here and I made this list that got too long. And I had Patty Jenkins on the list. And I thought, well, she's doing, she's already going to be involved, so we'll work it from there. I had Bryce Dallas Howard, and I thought, well, she's in the Star Wars universe. And I had Taika Waititi, and I just thought, maybe, and it's just funny because I kept working my list down and working it down. And I think that there are a handful of really great directors right now that are out there that are making amazing movies, like how Justin pointed out Aquaman and James Wan, and he also built The Conjuring. He's like a billionaire. He's the inventor of the Conjuring movies. And it's funny because I actually think that a lot of the people that I ended up picking, and I'm not a horror person, but they're almost all horror or thriller directors. And I think that's because people that understand horror understand how you make movies that affect people. I would say a lot of people, when you say the name John Carpenter, you think of Halloween.
Yeah.
And when I think of John Carpenter,
or Wes Craven or something.
Yeah. And when I think of John Carpenter, I think, oh no, that guy's an unreal director. He made The Thing. He made They Live
God.
with Roddy Piper.
Wow, that is a name I have not heard in so long.
he is, and he's making these movies, and he's trying to break down like genres. You know what I mean? And it's funny because people like, oh, John Carpenter. Oh no, he just does like horror movies and like, he's Halloween, and it's like, no, he's like a guy that was like trying to break down a lot of things. But horror is one of those things that you can get into movies cheaply, start making those movies. Peter Jackson originated as a horror guy. Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi is known for that. I mean, Evil Dead, Army of Darkness. Yeah.
People think of George Lucas before Star Wars and they think, oh, American Graffiti, and that's like vanilla. And it's like American Graffiti's actually kind of got some rather scary parts, some parts where people get in over their head very quickly. And before that, he makes THX 1138, which itself is a psychological thriller. It's a horror. And so I've got some names on my list, and I honestly don't know where to start.
I find the best place to start is from the beginning.
Oh, hey, there we go.
Being deep tonight. Being deep. That's all.
We're getting in deep. By the way, I see that Michael Hill met Rowdy in 1989. Seriously, They Live is like one of my favorite movies. I could sit down here and do I know that Red Letter Media just did this, so I don't want to like overdo it, but I could do a top 10 John Carpenter movies. I was just sitting down and I've got them all. I had my Apple TV on earlier. Like if you go through my Apple TV movies, it's all these movies that are like, John Carpenter. Some of them are throwaways, but some of them are great. So I'm going to start with some of my favorite directors. Now I'm going to flip it. I'm going to start with some directors that I think are crazy choices, but I think could be great. And I'm going to start with Ari Aster. And he has 2 movies that are terrifying. And I don't think that we need a Star Wars horror movie. I want to get that clear. I'm not saying, like, I'm really excited about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I'm really excited about things that are like that. And I'm not advocating for a Star Wars horror movie. But as far as someone who has a gift for like drawing you in to a picture, Ari Aster made 2 movies that I'm sure people on the call might know. One of them is Hereditary, which is terrifying, and the other one is Midsummer, which has Florence Pugh in it from she's also in Black Widow. And this guy makes movies that I can't watch. I mean, they're hard to watch. And I'm not saying in like some like Jodorowsky like way where it's like it's a Dogma movie and I can't like get through it. I mean, this guy puts things on film that scare me and bother me. I'm blanking on his name, the original director of Let the Right One In. Not the remake in America. This guy, he really knows how to like ratchet up the tension. Hereditary is a terrifying movie. I can, like I said, barely watch it. And you've got people like James Wan who's experimenting with things like that, and The Conjuring and Malignant, and then can make Aquaman. And that's because these people know how to do world building. They understand how to execute against a vision. And some young directors can do that. Mm-hmm. And Ari Aster, Midsummer, terrifying. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to say that's a good movie, but terrifying. And a really, really great choice.
I was thinking, actually, I just picked these up from my local comic book store the other day. I was actually thinking somebody like that would be really good to do her. To do a film all about Doc Aphra. Like, yeah. I feel like somebody like that could make, because this is, if anyone doesn't know, in Star Wars, I don't want to get too much glare here, but Dr. Aphra is a character. She's a xenoarchaeologist or whatever, but she has basically no morals of any kind, and her code of ethics kind of is non-existent. So she'll just do whatever is in her own benefit, literally all of the time, without exception, almost without exception. Yeah, almost without exception. But I could definitely see, with all the places she goes and the things she gets herself into, I could see somebody like you're describing doing a movie or even a series, like probably even a series would be better off of a character like this. They could get into some seriously crappy places thinking it'll be totally fine, I'll make my way through it, and turn it into like a really frightening thriller or suspense based thing that would scare you. It doesn't even have to be horror, just could be like just so intense that you're like, what, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can even watch this anymore.
No, and I think that's like, I like a movie that's kind of like a slow burn. Michael Hill in the comments, he made reference to Steven Soderbergh's Contagion. By the way, if you read my blog for DevNet Create, I don't know how this ended up getting in there. I talk all about how I like binged a bunch of movies, and I brought up that I went through my phase of watching Contagion endlessly at the start of the pandemic, like I'm sure many people did. And I was watching it before the pandemic. I think it's a really great movie. I like a movie. I like things that are a slow burn. I like when a director's got a vision and they're just kind of carefully unwrapping it. Not the mystery box. That's J.J. Abrams, where it's like, it's a mystery. It's a mystery. What's it going to be? And it's like, I don't need that. What I need is a vision of something that is slowly being peeled back. A director that isn't on my list, but I could have added her, is like Greta Gerwig. And I honestly, I could have added her. She did some really great work on things like Little Women, which is oddly like a reinvention of that story. Like, it's non-linear. It's really, really smart. But yeah, I really think that you could go to people that have a good horror background and they can run with it. Another person that got their start in horror and never seemed to leave it, except now they're mainstream, is Guillermo del Toro.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I would love to see Star Wars I'd love to see what Guillermo del Toro could do with a Star Wars movie.
Yes. 100% agree. 100% agree.
For those on the call that might not know Guillermo del Toro, he made the Hellboy movies, which are a like peak vision. Someone who's got a great idea for something and then executes against it. You think of things like Pan's Labyrinth.
I love that movie. It was frightening, super freaky. It was not what I was expecting, and the ending was like, wait, what? Okay.
Yeah.
But it was so well done. So well done.
Terrifying. And this is what I mean by it's something about starting in a scary movie. And scary movies are the cheapest things to produce. The only thing cheaper is getting lost in a desert. There is something
the English
to
Patient.
it. Yeah. One of my favorite Tarantino movies. Yeah, exactly. The English Patient. One of my favorite Tarantino movies is a movie that he did called Death Proof, which was a part of the Grindhouse movies.
Yes.
And,
God, I love. They're terrible and they're amazing at the same time. Both of them
terrible,
are so fantastic.
And it's a scary movie. And again, if you go and see Inglourious Bastards, that's leaning on a horror movie. Mm-hmm. And the tension when what is it, Londa? It's of course Christoph Waltz is he's asking for the milk, or when he's eating the little like dessert with Shoshana. Mm-hmm. This is amazing. This is the craft of the filmmaking. And so yeah, I would love to see like a Guillermo del Toro Star Wars. I mean, I can only imagine what those aliens look like. I can only imagine what type of like vision that could be. I mean, when he applied it to Hellboy, I mean, I would have never believed that Hellboy could have come to life like that. And it did, and it looked great.
You know where I could see this, where I could see him is, I have the books back here, two of them. You can kind of see them on the shelf right here. The silver and red book. They're the first two books in the most recent Thrawn trilogy for Star Wars. The third book in it comes out, I think, in a couple of weeks, like November 12th or something. Anyway, it takes place when Thrawn is young, and it takes place in the unknown territories, like in wild space. And it takes place between the Chiss and the other races there. It doesn't, what they call lesser space, which is the rest of the galaxy that we all know and love. But it takes place there, and one of the main protagonists is this race called the Grisk, which is basically, they're sort of like writing that race in as a supplement in canon for what the Yuzon Vong was in
Yes.
in
Yes.
Legends books, but they're not the same. It's not the same sadomasochistic race, but
Yep.
taking the place of that sort of character. But the characters are the creatures, no one has ever really seen them. They don't know what they look like, but they can take over an entire planet, like with 50 Grisk could take over an entire planet with no shot fired. Like, they just manipulate people into doing what they want and fighting for them in some way, and become like this major enemy for the Chiss. But the way that you read the story is so intense, because it's like layers upon layers of people doing things they're manipulating to doing, with this one creature at the base of all of it. But the way they formed it is the Grisk don't forget. The Grisk don't tell, or like whatever, like you will pay your debts to the Grisk, but no one's ever seen it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I could see Del Toro doing something with some creatures like that, where you don't ever need to see the bad guy. You don't need to see it, but you can have this intensity built up in the story that in a way that is like, you don't need to. Like, the concept of the bad guy is its own character. The physical character doesn't even need to exist to some degree. Almost bringing the character in almost diminishes their role in the story, because you didn't really need it. Like, just knowing that they're there is kind of enough. It's almost like the hand in Inspector Gadget. Like, it's silly, but you never needed to see that character to actually know that it's there and pulling the strings for everything.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like you got to give him the right story, and man, that guy could execute. I would have loved to have seen his Hobbit. He was the original director of the Hobbit movies. It was going to be 2 movies, and he didn't believe in making the Hobbit movies look like the Lord of the Rings movies. He wanted to lean into it being like a fairy tale.
Awesome.
I completely agree. I also think that those movies are not 3 that book is not 3 movies.
No, it was barely 2 movies.
And I think what he wanted to do was be more fantastic. And I'm okay with that. I saw what a Middle Ages Lord of the Rings looked like through Peter Jackson's eyes. Which, by the way, again, Peter Jackson from horror. Look at how terrifying the Fellowship of the Ring is. Mm-hmm. Look at how many jump scares are in Fellowship of the Ring when Gandalf goes down to try to touch the ring and the eye of Sauron pops up, or when
the Watcher in the Water, or
the Watcher in the Water, or so many different things. There's so many times where it is a jump scare. Mm-hmm. Gandalf grabbing Frodo from his shoulder from behind and pulling him back. The whole Bridge of Khazad-dûm sequence.
Oh my
These
gosh.
are scary moments. Or even the Cave Troll. The Cave Troll has a jump scare. I see this note here, Jason Rothenberg. I think that the work that was done on the 100, this is exactly why I'm so excited to see Star Wars in a television format. Because you could try out some of these directors, you could give them films. Some of them you can give them series.
Yeah.
You could say, hey, go for it.
And we've talked about this before too. Like, my wife and I've had this conversation many times, and you and I have had this talk a lot. I am a huge fan. Let's do more series. I want to see more series and fewer movies. And when you do a movie, make it a big damn deal. Like, and it doesn't. Yeah. I don't want forget these trilogies. Forget trilogies. Maybe there's a second movie, but forget trilogies. We don't need that. What we need is, the MCU has done a great job showing us that this is possible. You can do all of these standalone films that still build up to a larger set of world building that is clearly in one big vision. Absolutely. You don't need to do it in a dedicated, we got to have 3 movies in this one. Like, no, you don't. You absolutely do not need to do that. And in a series, like, feature-length film these days is broaching on 2.5 hours pretty much typically now. 120 minutes used to be like the default. Now 2.5 hours is becoming kind of the norm. Feature length, you pick any series, Mandalorian, 8 episodes, 9 episodes, even if they're 25, 30 minutes long, you're still talking 5 to 6 hours of content. You're not going to fit that in a movie. You'll need a trilogy to do it. But if you do it in a series, you can just take all the time in the world to get through this entire series and explain the character stories in the way that you want and build up the hero's journey in the way that you see fit in that series. And you're not forced into, it's got to be in this movie, and then I have to make 2 more of them that kind of follow along and there's a middle. Like, no, just I want to see more series. I want to see more of these. I would love to see some of these directors that you've mentioned and that I brought up do feature like films, but make it one. Crush
Oh,
one.
I'm all about the standalone movies, and I feel like it's got to start with the story first. I think sometimes, hey Rich, see that Rich is leaving. Hey, looking forward. I'm gonna be catching Rich's show this weekend, which I'm sure we can share the link for Rich's show.
Yep. Get some rest, buddy.
But yeah,
Hope you get some sleep, and hope you feel better soon, man.
yeah, I hope you're on the mend soon. The thing that I think you just hit the nail on the head there, Jeff, is I'm all about the series. I'm all about the liberation of the how you can make movies now and how you can tell stories. There's a lot of different tools, but again, I think it starts with the story first. I think sometimes there's a desire to want to rush something out because it's branded, so you get it out there, and it's like, let's just get it out there, let's just kick it out, so that way people can start consuming this content, churn, and that diminishes the brand. It diminishes these things. No one talks about Caravan of Courage, which are the Ewok movies.
Yes.
Because it start with the story, start with the reason why you want to tell something, and it really does make a difference. It's funny. I even think the prequels found their way somehow to be a reflection of the era in which we lived, at least the West, the era in which we lived in that moment. The excesses of the late 90s captured perfectly in The Phantom Menace. The scariness of the changing of the world after 9/11 and Attack of the Clones, the militarization of society, and how quickly things can fall apart when you see in Revenge of the Sith. That's where it's like, you got to start with the story. You got to, even Tolkien. Tolkien wanted to just tell a fairy tale, but was really telling a story, even if he doesn't acknowledge that, or didn't acknowledge it, of World War One and the horrors of that, and the change of industry, the change of England by industry. These were things like I think all of these directors typically start with the story first. Chloe Zhao, Nomadland, it's a deep movie. It is at times painful to watch, and it's because they're starting with the story first.
Yeah, as Simon Sinek would say, start with why. Always got you.
Yes.
You always start with your why, and then create your story based off of that. Here's my why. This is why I want to do this as a director. Here's the story that I want to tell, exactly like you said. And then you put that into some output from there, but not the other way around. When it's made the other way around, it turns into something that is just like, we're just trying to get something done to put out there. Like, I don't know, my opinion, basically every Transformers movie after the first one. Like, yes, probably even the first one to a large degree. But like, they feel to me like, cool, we need to make more of them because look, people are ticket sales and Transformer sounds and everyone loves this. And it's like, no, but you don't need to keep doing that. Like, sure, people are going to come and pay you money for it, but is that really the reason you're doing this? Because you probably make more money doing something else.
Oh, I completely agree with that. I think that, honestly, the first one is borrowing a lot from the 1980s the animated Transformers movie with the Allspark and the Autobot Matrix of Leadership, which I have a flashlight that opens up and it has the light on the inside, and I can't help all the time but open that up and go, "You've got the touch." That's what was missing from those Michael Bay movies, by the way. But yeah, I think you got to start with the story. Really good examples of a director who I would love to see in the Star Wars crossover to the Star Wars universe. I know we've talked about a lot of superhero directors, but a movie that I don't think is a superhero movie, just happens to have superheroes in it, is Black Panther. And Ryan Coogler, who went to my alma mater.
Oh, really?
Yes. He is a product of Sac State. He is just out of this world.
Oh, he's fantastic. Absolutely.
I can't wait to see Wakanda Forever. I have the sequel to Black Panther. I trust that he'll be able to make it even after the untimely passing of Chadwick Boseman. I cannot wait to see every movie this guy produces. Black Panther. You talk about a movie with someone starting with a story first. Black Panther's got a story. When you find yourself understanding fully the motivations of your quote unquote bad guy, man, that's some deep stuff right there. That's what was missing in the sequel trilogy, in my opinion.
Agreed. 100% agreed. Like you couldn't. Yeah, we could go down that rabbit hole forever. Like there was too much left out of the motivations of the protagonists in that movie, or specifically in all three movies, but I would say specifically in Return of the Sith, when it culminated, like you just got to a place where we didn't know how we got to this place, other than governments are corrupt. Like, okay, but that's not like, yeah, but that's like all governments are corrupt. So that's not really a story. Like there's no news here. Like that's like, we understand that already. Like that's not a new thing. So what else? And when you go watch the Clone Wars, okay, well you get some more and you get some better understanding if you watch those. But we've talked about this part before too. No director, in my opinion, any director worth their salt, I guess I should say, should not make a movie and doesn't make a movie predicated, the understanding of which, or the story's telling, like predicated on having watched other things first or read other things first. If you're making a movie that way, you are doing this wrong. You make a movie with a self-contained story that people can come in and enjoy. Oh, and if they happen to also connect with other content that is made, books, comics, TV shows, whatever, doesn't matter what the content is. Oh, that's even more fantastic because that shows the much larger world building that is being done. But I don't believe you should ever make a movie for the purpose of, well, we're making a trilogy out of this, so we got to make sure it continues. Like, yeah, but you can still do that better. You can still, like Star Wars, before it even called it New Hope, just Star Wars. You watch that movie, it is a self-contained movie. You could stop right there and that's it. The movie ends with an ending. Like, the movie is over. Continuing from that point is like, oh, we now decided to go look at more of that galaxy far, far away and understand more of what's happening around them and their political dynamic and all that. But you didn't need to. Like, if he had just stopped at that movie, it's a complete movie by itself. Fantastic. Yeah. A ribbon was put on it at the end and we're done. And I'm like, more directors, I feel like, need to think about it like that and embrace that more fully. And to your point, Ryan Coogler did a fantastic job with that in Black Panther. Like, it didn't need, I mean, having a second movie we all want because it was amazing, but it didn't need it. Like, there's nothing necessary. It didn't necessitate a second movie. It was like, yep, this movie is over and they're going to do some cool stuff. And he does. He shows up in Oakland and he's doing some good stuff for the community.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I can't say enough how amazing Black Panther is. How you were talking about problematic movies, and I always find that movies are problematic when you find yourself saying this is happening because the script is telling these characters to do that. That's the only reason why these things. Why is this happening? Well, the script said it has to happen. Or you know that you're in a bad movie if you hear someone try to justify it by saying, "Well, it's a movie."
Here's a good example of this. This has nothing to do with movies or TV shows, but so I'm reading the book. I'm almost done with it. Reading the book called Ask Your Developer by Jeff Lawson, the CEO of Twilio. And in it, he's talking about the part of the book I'm in now. He's talking about agile, and I won't go down that rabbit hole right now. But he's talking about it, and he's discussing how it can be done and how they do it and how it can be done really badly. And he said, when you walk into an office and you ask your developers, some code was built, some part of a system was built, it didn't really work. You ask them, well, why'd you build it that way? If someone responds to you, well, that's what the PM told me to do, so that's what I built. I think, to me, that's an exact allegory for exactly what you just said. They are the same thing. It's like, well, I did it because that's what the person put together. It's like, one, no, like bad. Yeah. Don't do that. But two, it's like, you've created, as a director in that case, you've created an environment where people don't feel like they can chime in their creative energies, and you're going to listen, and it's going to become a conversation where you develop something together. Even though you have a vision, you're going to develop something together. And the really good directors and the really good leaders, that's what they do. They have a vision and then give the group the autonomy to figure out how best to put that vision into play, even though you're moving the vision forward, whether it's in software development or whether it's in movies, TV shows. And all the directors I think you have mentioned, all the ones I think I brought up, do that. They give They want the creativity from the people who are the creatives on the set, the other creatives, the producers, the editors, the set designers, the actors. the actors
Yeah, I
and
mean,
say,
Ryan Coogler was working with many of the actors on set to help further define the characters. Some of the lines, like some of Killmonger's lines, were done on set. I think some of his the last words that he's saying, oh my gosh, I mean, it's Michael B. Jordan is like coming up with some great things right there on set, and Ryan Coogler's like, yeah man, you're in it. Irvin Kirchner with Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford saying Han Solo would never tell her I love you. And okay, well, Harrison, you find it in this moment, and take I love you, I know. That's a powerful thing that great directors can do, because they're building trust with the people that are on the set.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And again, to that end, it's like I've got my wish list of my alternate universe group. I'd love to. I would have loved to have seen Irvin Kirchner making more movies. He's unfortunately has passed. He made Empire Strikes Back. I'd love. Irv is like the best. Speaking to your thing about standalones, he wasn't until further into Star Wars, further into Empire, shooting Empire, that he was like, oh, this is the middle chapter, so I'm gonna have it have an emotional climax. I mean, that's like an unbelievable, like, prescient thing to realize. It's like good old Irv. I'd love to have seen the David Lynch Return of the Jedi.
Oh my god, yes.
It would have been I've talked about this in the past, it would have been the grossest thing in the world.
You would have it would have like been walking out of Eyes Wide Shut. I did see that in the theater, by the way, and walk out and go, what in the actual F did I just watch?
Oh yeah,
like, I mean, I'm not gonna get this time back in my life ever. Like, that's how you would have felt at the end of Return of the Jedi. Be like, okay, I feel like I need some alcohol and to go to sleep.
Jabba's palace would have been rough.
Oh my God.
Watch any David Lynch movie, and if you haven't, you can watch even an accessible David Lynch movie like Mulholland Drive.
I'm not sure you can use those two, David Lynch and accessible, together.
Inaccessible, one thing though that I do love, Jeff, is the Star Wars Vision. Where I think that's our next episode. We could talk about Star Wars Visions.
Absolutely.
Is one of the things that director that I love, and I know that a lot of other filmmakers loved, is Akira Kurosawa. Many of his movies are currently Mandalorian owes its heritage to Akira Kurosawa. The Hidden Fortress is a model for Star Wars. You sit down, you watch things like Rashomon, you watch things like Throne of Blood. Oh my gosh, Kurosawa's like unreal. And I am really excited that because we can't, of course, have a Kurosawa Star Wars movie, we can have Star Wars Visions, which is bringing in a lot of voices that I think, a lot of visions of Star Wars that I think Kurosawa would have really appreciated, especially because it was directors in the West like Spielberg and Lucas that really made. We know Kurosawa because these guys from USC just were like, oh, he's got it. Yeah. And celebrated his movies. And if you can find them on Apple's iTunes movies, you can find them everywhere. They're part of the Criterion Collection. I would recommend Throne of Blood or Rashomon. Both of those movies are like unbelievable. Like they're so great. And you can see the original R2D2 and C3PO in Hidden Fortress.
If you we're definitely doing Visions next time. And on top of that, for anyone watching, if you have not watched Star Wars Visions, go do that. It's on Disney Plus.
Yes.
Short series. It's like 8 episodes long or something. Really, each one they were basically, all these directors were given the freedom. Directors and writers were given the freedom to say manga, like Japanimation, anime. Take that genre, that style of writing, and go do Star Wars and tell us what it would look like. And you have the creative freedom to do whatever you want. Have at it. Like, there was no like, you got to check back, it's got to follow canon. Nope, go do it. And that's what we're going to. And so it's a showcase of what the influence of Japanese writing and directing is, specifically from like the anime style in Star Wars. And if you really love this stuff, the first episode is called The Duel. It's amazing. And they published a book on it last week. So I've been reading, it's called Ronin. And the first chapter of the book is literally that first episode. It's not called The Duel, but in the book it is The Duel. And then the book takes the end of that story and it continues on to the end of the book. It is already so fantastic. It's very cerebral. It's a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversation. You're in the main character's head, but it is fantastic what they're able to take that's what I think both of us have been loving so much about this current generation of Star Wars is like you said, we can have a miniseries. These episodes are like 10, 15 minutes long at most. And then they just turned one into a book. Like, that would never have happened before, but that was intentionally planned. Someone might have been, ooh, maybe I'll turn that into a story. It's like, no, they planned this. Ronin was put onto my Amazon my Amazon pre-order list like 5 months ago, and I ordered it knowing that it would drop on October 11th. And I didn't even know Visions was going to be a thing. And also they announced it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then I watched the first episode. I'm like, it's about a Ronin. Okay, cool. The book shows up and I read it. I'm like, oh, this is literally that episode. So they had already planned these things. And I think that's what makes it so amazing is whether you're a big Star Wars fan or not, how intricate it is they are planning these things and like weaving these things together to showcase all this different type of storytelling and content. It's amazing. It really is.
Oh, I can't agree more on everything that you're saying, and I would recommend anyone who hasn't seen Visions to go and check it out. And I would say this, Jeff, if you enjoyed The Duel, if you enjoyed how it looks, how it worked, I would recommend Kurosawa's last film, Ran. It is a movie that I feel like someone was like, let's do something in honor of some of the great Kurosawa movies. And again, like Yojimbo, which is what so much of Han Solo's character and obviously The Mandalorian is based on, which is also turned into a Western movie called, very famously called A Fistful of Dollars, and the Dollars series. By the way, like I'd love to see a Star Wars spaghetti Western, but I feel like that's The Mandalorian.
I'm pretty sure that's what that is.
I think that's exactly what that is. But yeah, I think you'd love Ran. If you haven't seen it already, and I apologize if you have seen it, but I think that you would really enjoy that just based on what we saw in Star Wars Visions. And I've got a hot take, Jeff. I've got a hot take.
Do it.
I think Star Wars Visions succeeds in story and artistry where the What If series left me wanting. So as my hot take, I think the What If series that came up from Marvel was great, but I think that Star Wars Visions, and I'm not trying to compare the two and say one has to be better than the other, but I really like where Visions is going, and I feel like they should have let up on the reins a little bit on What If.
I think that, and personally, as much as I enjoyed watching it, the last episode, I really wish that they
saved a lot of it.
For me, I actually went the other way around. I love the episode, but I actually really wish they had done what you described, which is loosen the reins and let them do whatever, and then not make it a series that has to culminate in a unification of all the episodes. I didn't
totally agree.
I did not
totally
like that.
fine.
I'm like, I was actually super excited for that to be all these individual episodes that we're just hearing about from the watcher, and that's it. And they're just what if situations. And the end. The fact that they turned it into the second to the last and the last episode as, oh, this is actually one big stitching thing together. I'm like, no, like why? Like, why did you do that? Leave it alone. Just bad. Stop. Like, Visions is great for that reason because they're all completely different stories. That's just a drop in the bucket. Like, you know, Roland on the shores of the Western Sea, opening up a door and seeing something on the other side. And then when he's done, he closes the door and the door doesn't open ever again. And he moves on to the next door in the drawing of 3. Like, that's just like in the Gunslinger series. Like, that can be all it is. It's a door. It's a thinny. You open up and you see something. And then when it's closed, that's gone. And you just move on to the next thing. The end. And it was a hugely missed opportunity in my opinion.
I agree, and I'm a huge fan of the What If comics. Like, of my collection of comics, I have a lot of What If comics. I loved What If stuff. I have a What If Spider-Man was a member of the Fantastic Four. I love that as an idea, because the best part about What Ifs and the best part about alternate universes is that you can actually have real stakes. One of the things that happens in comic books is that people die, but they're really not dead. Oh, Professor resurrects is dead, but he'll come back. Wolverine was dead, and I went to a website. There was a website called "Is Wolverine Alive Yet?" And you could go there, and it would say, "Well, Wolverine's still dead." And now you go there, and it's like, "Oh, he came back. He's alive again." The best part about What Ifs is that they had no weight. You could kill Captain America. You could have these things, real things happen outside of the standard continuity, and it was like, wow, like the weight of something. Like one of the, it's a kind of a weird comic book series, but the Age of Ultron comic book series, there's all these things that happen that then are unmade, and it's terrifying because there are real consequences, and that's what I feel like they're getting out of Star Wars Visions, which is real weight of stories, real things that happen, and not something where it's like, I feel like What If kind of got overproduced. Like there were too many people at hand.
They went to the edge and they kind of looked over to no, that's not, let's back that up like 10, 15 feet. That's not really where we want to be right now. And okay, I get it, but I really wish they'd done that a little bit differently. I really do. I think it would have been, like you said, I think it would have been more interesting if they let, like we saw in Visions, in several of the episodes where you see, like, there's an episode where this band is, one of their band members is got to perform before Jabba. They finally agree to let that happen, and he's going to be executed afterwards because he messed over Jabba. And then it plays out a little differently, but then it stops, and you don't really actually know at that point if what's actually going to happen, and that's it. And we're not going to get any more in that story. And I love that because a good story leaves you wondering. It doesn't button things up where you're like, okay, cool, I know everything there is to know here. Because it's kind of like when we were kids, at least probably you and I were kids. I don't know about kids now, but like my grandparents and my parents would say, if you leave when you're not ready to leave, you're always going to want to go back to some place. And I always thought like, oh, that's your excuse for why we're leaving Disneyland, at the end of half day as opposed to the full day. But I look back on it. I look back at it now, and my grandparents would say it like about camping. One time we convinced my parents camping to stay an extra day. And they're like, you guys want to stay an extra day? We have time. The summer break. Dad had time off. Okay. We had to move camping sites in the campground. We had our little motorhome, moved to a different campsite. I don't even remember where the campground was, but the gist for my parents and even for my sister and I, it's like, I don't think we actually went camping for a long time after that. And we never wanted to go back to that place, no matter how much fun we had there, because the memory that we had was, well, we did everything there was to do here. Cool.
Yep.
So there was no like, oh, I want to go back and check this other thing out. Nope, we did it. We stayed an extra day. We did those other things. And I think that same energy is what happened to me, at least with some of the What If series. It's kind of like, yeah, so you gave me everything I was expecting to get here, and you gave me a conclusion to the whole thing. So, oh yeah, this is a neat lead into the multiverse of madness. Great. We've been getting a lot of that. That's cool. But I'm not scared by it. Like I'm not, there's no suspense for it. After it concluded, there was no more suspense. It concluded in a very neat and clean way, which to me feels like that's not actually what's going to happen in the Multiverse of Madness when we see that movie. It's not going to be neat. I mean, Sam Raimi's directing it. It's not going to be neat and clean. It's going to be choppy and scary, and it's going to freak you out, and it's going to leave you hanging in so many different ways, is my guess, because of what it's supposed to be. I know this is far afield from Star Wars, but I feel like we're starting to get a lot better of that sort of thing out of Star Wars right now than the MCU, and I'm hopeful that will change. With the Eternals, I'm really excited to see what they do with the Eternals here in a few weeks. But
yeah, I'm really interested in seeing what they're going to do with the Eternals, because I feel like Marvel's really big on like putting a bow on everything, and it's like, I don't need a bow on everything. No. One of my favorite stories growing up, we're talking about like kind of childhood memories. I have it on my wall, like right there. It's the last page, because it's, to me, like the perfect ending of literally any story. And I'm gonna this is gonna sound silly, but it's Stuart Little. And it's the last page. Stuart, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, Jeff, and I know this is gonna sound really silly, but it is, as a writer, to me, it's like one of the greatest endings of any story. And E.B. White does this so well, because Charlotte's Web is the same thing. It doesn't end with like an everything worked out. It's that it ends with the feeling of at least things are moving in the right direction. And in Stuart Little, it ends with Stuart Little's off to go and find his friend Margalo, and he doesn't know where she is. And he's kind of pulled off on the side of the road in his little car, and he's asking a guy kind of which direction he should be going in. And the guy kind of gives him he has just chit-chatting with the guy. It's almost like an inconsequential conversation. And he talks to him about bird migration, and then they just kind of like settle up their conversation. And Stewart gets in his car, and he's driving off, and he says he decided to travel north. He didn't know if that was the right way, but it felt like a good direction. And it's exactly the way I feel like great stories can end, which is I don't need a total closure on every single story. I think sometimes it's just totally okay to just introduce like a moving ending. I didn't, to some extent, even with Star Wars, like I don't need to see every little thing. Like, how are they going to bring democracy to the Outer Rim? No, I don't need to see that. Seeing Luke on Endor with the revived Anakin and Obi-Wan and Yoda is enough. And you could end it there, and I'm totally fine. And I guess that's kind of my thing is that I like it, just like you said, it's okay to have you wanting more. In fact, I would say Lord of the Rings does the thing that the Lord of the Rings trilogy does the thing that it's like, I could have told you 2 or 3 endings ago. End the movie here. Yeah. I'm fine. I don't need to see it all the way to the end of the door closing. You could have ended at just the shot between Frodo and Sam when Frodo wakes up and he's surrounded by the Fellowship, or at least the surviving members of the Fellowship. I mean, if I was Frodo, I would have thought I had died because Gandalf's there. And the last time I remember, Gandalf's dead. And I would have thought, oh, I'm obviously dead. But it's a great moment because Sam and Frodo see each other and the Shire theme plays, and you know that they're home. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. I love when movies do that, just like totally the trip that you're talking about.
Yep. Yeah. Well, listen, we did it tonight. We went and just kept going down our rabbit holes, and it's awesome. But I think it's probably time for us to wrap up. And whoever the last 2 folks are who are still watching, I think it might be Michael.
Oh yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate it. If you want to catch up on more content, you can subscribe to the channel on YouTube. We'll be continuing to rebroadcast or broadcast in the future on both Facebook and Twitter at the same time. So we're far more accessible to everyone who's out there. But yeah, follow us on YouTube at the Kessel Chat. Like the video if you enjoyed it. And thanks for sticking with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you can follow us too on Twitter as well. And you can I will add my bold vision of Alfonso Cuarón could have made all of the Star Wars movies and potentially better. Alfonso Cuarón, hot take.
And on that note, we just close the doors. All right, everybody, have a good night.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye all.